At the corner?
Yeah, no, I don't know.
Those in there?
Yeah. That used to be an arcade place there, remember?
Yeah. And the train station was there before.
And the furniture shop.
Split Good Friday in two, and that good new morning groaned and snapped like breaking an old habit. Within minutes, people who had always been leaving nowhere began arriving nowhere. Entire lives stuffed in pillowcases, used plastic bags. Naked children suddenly transformed into citizens.
Hello, and thank you for tuning in. For National Windrush Day, the Vortex Jazz Club presents Man of Words and Music. This is where we throw the spotlight on Shake Keane, the St. Vincent-born trumpeter and flugelhorn player. Now, not only was Shake an outstanding musician, but he wrote outstanding poetry too. Was he first a poet who was a musician, or first a musician who was a poet? In truth, he was both, and exceptional at being both. As Windrush Day commemorates post-war economic contributions made by pioneering generations of West Indians, particularly in the services of the NHS and London Transport, it is also a good opportunity to remember the artistic and creative contributions they made to British culture, lest they be forgotten. Some of you will know Shake as a member of Joe Harriot's Revolutionary Quintet from the 1960s, but you may not be familiar with his persona as an award-winning Caribbean poet. Philip Nanton, Shake's biographer, reads two poems from Shake's Volcano Suite. These are set to a montage of powerful imagery inspired by Shake's language. Then to round off, we have Man of Words and Music, which is a short film shot on a beautiful summer's day with Kevin Legendre, the broadcaster, and Shake's son, Roland Ramanan, discussing Shake, the man, his music, and the legacy.
Volcano Suite, Poem 2. I told her that words ride cables and wires like ashes on a stretched nerve. An ash-dead wind snores from the north, astonishes a disabled dog, gutter shot. Magma Madonna. The gutter says, it says, the dog says, these things have happened before. But the old prophetess, sweaty white-collared dress, damaged blue, yellow magma in her nostrils, footsore, swears this is as new as the end of the world. She saith, this earth you standing upon is pullulous, rotten to the core. A new generation of children, sweating smart in olive green fatigues, laughs loud at her prophecy. They are unloading rice for the poor. She accepts my dollar. Magma Madonna, Magma Madonna. Beyond our brave, uneasy exchanges, that mountain, guttural with the impediments of her own history, with monumental patience, rehearses, and rehearses, secretes her own secrets in an unknown tongue. Among your own children, O deranged mother, Mama déranger, Saint Destroyer, O unspeakable Madonna, Ulima, Atari. There are also words, sour words, like ashes on a stretched nerve, like sulfur on a ripe sore, like tremors in the core of the brain, limning the memory. Madonna, 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 Laracai, Turuma, Tourbillon, Mia Domine, Montpellier, Laracai. I, disabled poet, amazed in ashes, wagging myself free of all who ashes are, move among these ancient children, dead and born. Fleshed in memory, born today, tomorrow in 1812. Move, asking for words, spluttering simple syllables like love, like caring, daring to suppose that from now on it will be impossible to recollect my life without the knowledge of certain words. Magma, ejectamenta, Laracai, Madonna, Madonna, Madonna. I had not realized how similar our private lives are at the camps. The same washing, same diminutive underwear, same night dresses in cheap tablecloth patterns from Alexander's in Brooklyn. How similar, therefore how unprivate. Next Christmas, I shall buy my linoleum in broad daylight so strangers can laugh beforehand at my preferences and love me on that morning. At the camps, I realize that our lives pivot themselves on just a few simple questions. Child, can you breathe? Who damn well stole my butter vanilla sweet biscuit? Children, how many times I must tell you to say thanks when strangers helping you? Ma, where is Saudi Arabia? Teacher, if school come back, you will tell us how many constituency it have now in our state? Oh, and where Sumatra is? Is it safe to drink water? Daddy, it have carnival, look, steel band coming. You call this food? How your jeans dirty so quick? Mr. Sir, I like Miss Jeans Duncan. You helping me to goddamn wash up these pots though? Bajo boy, you think I didn't see you and Tonya last night? Next Christmas, he will be born at the Verbeek Center. And behold, 3 wise women and the new sister from Trinidad shall give out the news on that good new morning.
In 1927, Ellsworth McGranahan Keane, known to the world as Shake, was born in the British Caribbean island colony of St. Vincent. His early life was in some ways typical of that colonial period, but in others also very different. His parents, Charles and Dorcas Keane, lived in the island's capital, Kingstown, and he was the fifth of their 7 children. You could say that the family lived on the edge of poverty. His father worked as a plantation overseer and was at one time a corporal in the island's police force. So, from this background, you can guess he was a strict disciplinarian. The fact that he drilled the entire family into playing a musical instrument was a distinguishing feature of the household. Charles taught Shake how to hold the trumpet and read music before allowing him to put the instrument to his lips. Besides a belief in discipline, like many Caribbean families, the Keanes were regular church-going Methodists. Charles was determined his children should better themselves, and the way to achieve this was through music and formal education. But when Shake was 11, disaster struck the family. His father died suddenly. Confronted with this family catastrophe, like all the other family members, Shake had to work to help sustain the household. But it had become quickly apparent that Shake was musically gifted, and soon he was marching in the island's Boys' Brigade band, even if, when he played with them, he had to run to keep up with the longer striding members of the band. When a little older, he tells the story of playing in the evenings all around the island to earn his keep with popular dance bands, while he was the only band member in short pants. It even fell to him as a schoolboy to play the last post on ceremonial occasions in front of the island's statue of the unknown soldier, called the Iron Man, in the center of Kingstown. Shake was not only a gifted musician, he was also a bright student at school. He won a scholarship to the Boys' Grammar School, the island's main secondary school. It was here he discovered a love of literature by reading widely. And this was a time when there was little entertainment to be had outside of the home. So he started writing stories and poems to amuse family and friends. As a result, his school friends started to call him Shake, the name short for Shakespeare. One friend at that time claimed he was a person who could convince you of anything. After he graduated from secondary school and a short spell of work in the island civil service, he returned as a pupil teacher to his old school, where he taught for 5 years. His subjects were music and French, for which he had developed quite an aptitude. He also found time to organize a school choir and a school band. While still a secondary school pupil, his approach to learning French was quite innovative. He supplemented his formal French lessons by getting into conversation with visiting mariners from the French islands of Martinique and Guadeloupe. And he also tuned into French-speaking radio stations, beamed from abroad to improve his language skills and vocabulary. At this stage of his life, it's fair to say, Shake was more excited by literature than music. By the time he left for England at the age of 25, he was already a published poet with 2 collections of poetry to his name. He had published poems in regional literary magazines and on the famous BBC radio program Caribbean Voices. He was the author of 2 articles on Caribbean poetry in BIM, the well-known Barbados literary magazine. And so, as a budding literary analyst and poet, he told anyone who cared to listen that once he got to England, he intended to study literature at university. As it turned out, life in London had very different plans for him.
Hello. I can't quite remember when I first heard Shake Keane, but it was in my own early days of a developing interest in jazz. At that time, of course, I was listening to a lot of the great American jazz trumpet players, such as Miles Davis and Clifford Brown. But here I heard some of the British trumpet players like Les Condon and Jimmy Duca and Shake. And in fact, it was Shake that I loved most of all, because I found his playing to be remarkably free of stock cliches. And in other words, he was a very original player. As I said, I don't know when I first heard him, but it was most likely would have been with the Joe Harriott quintet that Joe had at the time. I may have heard, first of all, Shake playing with Joe on the radio, also maybe on a visit to my hometown in Leicester. But in particular, I can remember that Joe's quintet was the support band on a tour of Dave Brubeck. And Joe was very brave because at this time he'd been experimenting with free-form improvisation. In fact, I believe Joe was the first person to call that kind of music free-form, which of course was adopted all over the world for a description of a lot of free improvised music. The quintet would play ahead and then just play free. And I think this was to play to a conservative audience at the time, a Dave Brubeck audience. I think this was quite a brave thing to do. Of course, anyway, I really enjoyed it. And then when I came to live in London in 1963, Joe's quintet had a residency for a while at the Marquee Club, which at that time was sited beneath the Academy Cinemas in Oxford Street. Yes, the Marquee Club. Anyway, I used to really enjoy that quintet. And then a bit later that year, 1963, I did one of my early professional jobs as a trumpet player, playing for the Gillian Lynn Dance Company at the Edinburgh Festival. And one day I was walking along the famous Princes Street, and I saw walking towards me Coleridge Good, Joe Harriott's bass player, and Shake Keane. Now, I'd met Coleridge Good at that point and a couple of times, and he introduced me to Shake, and in the process he flattered me by introducing me to Shake, saying, "This is that trumpet player I told you about." So I did feel flattered. Of course, after that period, he emigrated to Germany along with many other British musicians of that period in order to work with the great German band leader Kurt Edelhagen. And along with Shake went Jimmy Duca and Ronnie Stevenson and a few others. Anyway, years later, when that came to an end, that Kurt, his contract with the WDR radio station in Cologne ran out, so Shake came back to live in England. And at that point, I did meet him a couple of times by working with him on some sessions, recording some music by composer arranger Herman Wilson. And then not long after that, of course, he left England altogether and went back to his home island of St. Vincent in the West Indies. And I remember at that period seeing him on television once, standing on a beach with blue sea and palm trees and golden sands and all that lovely stuff. And he's standing there holding a flugelhorn and reciting one of his own poems.
The first time I heard of Shake Keane was on a track called Bayonga from my album, a compilation called London is the Place for Me. And I was blown away by his trumpet playing, his accuracy, his bounce, his rhythm, his tone, his energy, and his feeling that came through the horn. Years later, I also learned of his playing in Joe Harriott's quintet and also in his classical playing that was recorded as well in London. And I had also heard about him in conversations with Russ Henderson many, many years ago. It was only recently that I learned about his extensive poetry as well. So to know that he was such an expressive artist in different media, as a Caribbean musician is really inspiring for me, and it's something that I hold dear and with lots of admiration when I think of the genius, the man Shake Keane.